Hello all and welcome back to Thread Dread. Today we're going to do our 5-story review, which is where I go over the stories I've read in the past week or the past 5 stories I've read and tell you what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, kind of put a little bit of criticism there so that you guys know that I read your stories and I actually did pay attention. But first I kind of want to start off by saying that I'm really sorry about kind of the scheduling I've done lately. Last week I was busy with taxes and work and all that stuff, and even into a pretty good amount of this week I've been busy with a bunch of family stuff, so that's why it's been kind of slow getting some of these out. But I have improved my recording setup. I've made the quality a lot better. I bought some stuff to help, and I'm in a makeshift recording booth right now, and that will be the thumbnail and video image for this video. But yeah, I just wanted to apologize for that, and I also wanted to say that I'm actually kind of also thinking about making a little podcast on Spotify for these so that we can kind of expand beyond just YouTube, because most of my stuff is in like an audio format, so I think it would fit there. It's probably doesn't land as heavy on YouTube because I don't have any videos or stuff associated with it. But I'm probably going to hit up some of you guys and be like, hey, can I share your stories in more than one way? So I just want to let you guys know about that beforehand. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started. So the first story I read this week was I Don't Care If the Mirthful Maidens Sounds Like the Title of a 1920s era softcore porn film, Those Bitches Are Horrifying, by JeremytheTulpa. So, this story was a surrealist horror, and it was very surreal. At the same time, I felt horrible reading it, because a lot of the topics were misogynistic in a way, but I think that was the point of the story. So we follow our main character, who remains unnamed, who was, a drunk, his eventual recovery, the love he develops for his wife and for his 2 daughters, and then all of a sudden, this reminder of his past shows up back into his house, and he's going over all this stuff, right? And as he's telling him this, it's like a curse gets put on our main character, where paranoia starts to build. He becomes more aggressive and angry and vile, and like misogynistic. And I feel like there is a deep meaning to the story, and I love the story. The way that the parts kind of just flowed, the way that the wife seemed to grow more dismissive, the way the narrator started to grow more cold to just everyone in general was haunting. And at the end, we had the reveal of, the Mirthful Maidens and kind of like the deadlights from it, like in their mouths and stuff like that. And like how they seem to have consumed, I believe his name was Morty, which was the character. I know his last name for sure, Greenblatt. That stuck with me. They seem to consume him, and I just thought it was such an interesting concept. It felt like a commentary on the objectification of women in a way. I'm not sure if that's really what JeremytheTulpa was going for there, but altogether the story was great. The only complaint that I do have was that it felt rushed at the end, and I wanted so much more. The concept was so cool. I would have loved to have seen it like devolved into this more like nitty gritty like evilness, and it felt like that was where it was going because his paranoia was growing. He was becoming more of a gross person. But altogether, it was a wonderful story, and I loved it. And keep up the good work. I know you've got JeremytheTulpa. I know you've got a few published stories out there, and I encourage everyone to check out their Goodreads, their Amazon, just an incredibly talented writer. They've also got a bunch of stuff on their Reddit account that all look like fun reads. Like, I saw one not too long ago that was posted on Creepcast. I want to say it was like, why should you always clear your porn history or something along those lines. But it was very good. I remember reading, I didn't read the entirety of it, but I remember that it was very good. Next, we're moving on to The Village Feast by Tony Baloney 24. I love this story because I am a sucker for environmental horror, where you've kind of got like a monster or like a creature who has assimilated with a living organism like a tree, or sometimes a non-living organism like a town, and it is just so haunting when something like that happens, because the entity is not readily apparent, but you know that something is off. I felt this story tackled that concept perfectly, and the only complaint I have with the story is that it was short, and I was like hoping for more build-up and more delivery, right? And I was, when the story ended, I was just left on the edge of my seat. It ended very beautifully with the willingful assimilation of the main character, or the narrator, into the entity, because he had been driven, from what I saw, just completely mad by what was happening. And I thought that was very good. If I had any recommendations for the author, I would say that when you are doing like an emotional, part of a story, just like lengthen it. There were a few times when I was reading that when I was narrating, or even if I was just reading it straight, that the tone shift of the character felt a little like rushed, I guess you could say. Because there was one part where he was like, "Oh, my brother's dead. I hope that it was quick and painless," or something like that. And then instantly he's like, "Oh, I gotta look around, I gotta find these things." It would have been nice if there was like some character action also in there. Like, I felt sweat build up on the back of my neck. I slid my hands into my hair and fell down on my knees while my back slowly slid down the wall. That puts like more of an emphasis on that emotion that you're feeling. It helps capture it in like more of a more descriptive emotion, I guess you could say, instead of it being like, okay, his brother's dead, so he must feel sad or he must feel devastated. It's like, oh yeah, now that he's reacting, it's apparent that he is. But altogether, it was an exceptional story, and I really liked it. I loved the concept a lot. I wish it was longer, but when you got an idea and you put it on paper, sometimes you're like, I don't want to put... It's really difficult when it comes to Reddit, because you make something too long, then sometimes people aren't going to like sit down and read it, and so you make it like this perfect bite size, but it's hard to make it perfect bite size because sometimes it ends up too short. But I loved this story. I really did. So now we're moving on to our series, I guess you could say. So we covered the second part of I'm Alone in an Abandoned Building, or like I like to say, Chapter 2 by Maria Applevisser. And it continued that liminal, dream-like feeling. That was especially the case when it was describing the character looking out the window, and they see the flame light or a lightning bug or something in the distance, and they remember the taste of food in their mouth and all that stuff. And the whole description of the snake, it's got a crown on its head, it curls itself around the food. It's just a very haunting imagery, and it's just continuing all the good things that it did from the previous chapter into this one. And it's like that slow world building that's just so appetizing, and it makes you want to see, okay, well, where is this going to go? So I'm excited for the next part as well. moving on, we have I Tried to Save the Guy, Stuck in the Elevator, Now All of Reality is in Danger by Eat the Monolith. So, I love this story. It provided some answers that I'm alone in that help. I'm stuck in an elevator and the man behind me just turned around. Didn't cover. And the character was very lovable because you have this character who sounds so knowledgeable and so professional, and like they've really been stuck in this job forever. They've had to see the hardships of it and all this stuff, and they're kind of annoyed. Get kind of an annoyed tone with their voice, and the character just feels alive. And I've noticed with Eat the Monolith that he does that, or they do that very well. I don't want to assume. They do that very well, where it is a delivered character that is just alive in every way, and that is just amazing. And the whole descriptions of the story and the different devices that are used and the lump of flesh, is just so appetizing. I want to eat it up. It's just great. I love it. But yeah, just another great work from Eat the Monolith. Moving on, we have The House I Squatted In Never Existed Part 2 by XEC Savior. So, this part was great. I love it. I actually tried something new with this one, and I loved having the opportunity to try like voice overlaying and stuff like that. That was so sick. SXC Savior was like, in the Reddit, they said, "Hello, I loved what you did with it." Well, it was like, I wanted to say, well, you wrote the story. I'm just doing my best to make the awesome environment and awesome characters and awesome monsters and like these creepy elements that happen just more like, lifelike. You're the one that made them. And this story is gripping. I mean, it is just like, I've been thinking about it, and I can't wait to read the third part, because I care about the characters and I want to see what happens to our main character. But altogether, I mean, just an exceptional story, exceptional writing. The characters feel alive. You feel for them. You feel like there's stakes in the story. Ugh, so good. It is so good, and I cannot wait to read more. But, yeah. So, for the series, I'm just excited to read more. And for the standalones, they were exceptional. And thank you guys so much for letting me read your stories. Like always, I wouldn't have anything to read if it wasn't for you guys. So, I give you a big thanks for that. And, yeah, I'll catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.